Well, probably the one event that could be considered the straw that broke the camel's back occurred in 1999 or 98 in the Tour de France. Up until that time, there was still, in spite of the testing that was going on, in spite of the occasional publicity that some athletes were given when negative publicity, when they were discovered, still there was a lot of shenanigans going on throughout the athletic world. And pretty much, it was still a laissez-faire attitude. Because again, reputations were at stake. Money tended to encourage looking the other way until this happened. What's called the Festina affair. Festina is a watch. It's a watch company in Italy. And they sponsored a cycling team, a highly regarded cycling team in the Tour de France. It was a traffic violation, a minor traffic violation at that caused the eruption of the whole affair. When the trainer for the Festina team was stopped, and his car was sort of suspicious. The policeman who stopped him thought something suspicious and found the car was basically a pharmacy. It was loaded with all kinds of drugs, steroids, amphetamines, EPO, you name it, this guy had it in his car. And he was transporting it to the camp where the team was staying. Well, that broke the whole thing. I mean, if teams could get away with this, who knows what they could get away with. And people really started to look seriously at the damage that was being done to the sport. And after the Tour de France that year, they got together and they formed an organization. The first time this had ever been done. An organization with teeth in it called the World Anti-Doping Agency, WADA. WADA is now headquartered in Montreal. It's an independent foundation. Actually, it gets its money from many of the governments the United States contributes to it. And it is the governing body over the IOC even, the International Olympic Committee, over any national sports federations or individual sporting federations. WADA provides the annual list of prohibited substances. And generally the IOC, the NCAA, so-called amateur sports, take their cue from WADA. So you'll see a lot of the same drugs appearing, but WADA's list pretty much is the standard. And as you see down there, it standardizes the rules and the regulations. So it was about time that people got serious about dealing with this problem, because some of the more deep thinkers in the field said, you know, you can get away with it only for so long. You're going to turn the public off. You have a golden goose here with the money that can be made. But if you're going to turn off the public, that could dry up in the long run. So let's keep the sports clean. And that's why it was founded. WADA has testing laboratories all over the world. Every continent except Antarctica, of course, has testing laboratories, highly sophisticated testing laboratories, equipped with things like LC-MS to do very sensitive testing. And they do a lot of research, too, in these laboratories. I think there's 24 of them. Most of them are located in Europe. There's a few in the United States. But they do the testing. And they are challenged from time to time. It's the samples that are sent to them sometimes are intentionally spiked to see if they can find an imposter, to see if they can detect it. And they're accredited by WADA. So these labs have to be on the up and up because they know that if they try to fledge the results, they can get caught and lose a very lucrative contract with WADA. Well, the U.S. also has an anti-doping agency, which was founded shortly after WADA, gets its funds from the U.S. government, from the IOC and others. As you see, part of its mission is research, education, testing, and managing results. They standardize that. And this is the up-to-date list. If you want to go there, check it out. You can see, let's see, that's U.S. WADA at the top, U.S. list, and NCAA is the third one down. And amateur athletic federations many of them have their own lists that you can find. But professional sports are not governed by WADA, interestingly. Major League Baseball, coming back to that, anabolic steroids today are banned. And that includes, as you see, off-season testing, out-of-competition testing for that. And this is partly the result of the congressional hearings that were held back in the in the 2000s. And Mark McGuire and Canseco and Pettit hearings. In fact, the Major League Baseball did a blunder when, after the hearings, realizing that Congress was serious, that they might introduce legislation to remove their antitrust exemption, they said, we got to get serious. We have to really penalize these players. So they said, okay, we'll give them a 10-game suspension if they're caught with drugs. Some in Congress were outraged by that. That's like a slap on the wrist. And so they, Congress can just, encourage a little bit because they've always got that Damocles sword hanging over Major League Baseball. And Major League Baseball said, okay, we'll go back to the drawing board after a few senators said how outrageous that was. And I said, okay, the penalty will be 50 games. Well, all right. That'll be more like it, 50 games. And if they get caught a second time, it'll be 100 games. Third time, they're banned for life. Well, that didn't satisfy a lot of congressmen. They thought, fine them the first time, they ought to be banned, forever. So the compromise was reached. Because remember, baseball also has to deal with a union. They have a players' union. So they just can't automatically decree that we're going to ban them for life. So a compromise was reached. And that's why we have the 50, 100, and third time, and you're out. The NFL, which is not subject to the antitrust laws, as far as I know, does ban anabolic steroids, they ban growth hormone, ephedrine, street drugs, whatever that is. I presume that means opioids and marijuana. They only get by with a 4-game suspension and 6 games on a second offense and 1 year on a third offense. No lifetime ban in the NFL. NBA also has its rules. It's the 10-game suspension, blah, blah, blah. But the NHL has its rules, but nothing as strict as Major League Baseball, even though some would argue that's not strict enough.